What's up guys, Lifting here, welcome back to the third episode of the Path of Exile Survival Guide, the show where I create a character from level 1, go through the entire game up into high level maps, and I show you how I do it along the way, and I try to explain everything as much as possible so that if you guys are new, hopefully you'll learn something. In the last episode we encountered June for the first time. We talked a bit about the Immortal Syndicate. We went to the Tidal Islands to defeat Hellrake, and we got our Quicksilver Flask. We also got 2 support gems in return, and that is the Onslaught support gem and the Arcane Surge, and we've linked that to Freezing Pulse right now, and we will get to try that out very soon. For now, we're just gonna take it as we left off, or go from where we left off the last time, and that was on our way back to the coast so we can continue towards the next zone. We got the quest, A Dirty Job from Tarkblade, and maybe we'll do that. We'll take the waypoint back and go towards the coast. And you didn't get to see this the last time, but when you have the Quicksilver, look at our movement speed now as we activate it. It is so much nicer. The Quicksilver has 30 charges, or it has 50 charges, and it spends 20 every time you use it. So you can use it twice per flask, and then you'll have 10 charges left over, but it will of course fill faster. You're not going to lose them. They're just going to be in the bottom. You can't use them, but they will be there. If you upgrade the Quicksilver Flask, you can get it to have up to 70 charges in total, and you can thus use it 3 times, right? But let's get into it. We're gonna go to the Mudflats. I'll show you how to upgrade these things as we continue. And here we encounter June again in the other area, and basically for what it's worth knowing, when you play in the Betrayal League, you will encounter syndicate members to deal with in any zone, and they come in various forms and flavors, and we'll just hear what she has to say now.
I will join you once you near them.
That sounds like a transportation syndicate. When you press V on your keyboard, it opens up your syndicate table. Tiny Grain was the syndicate member that we encountered the last time, and we made a bargain with him. He belongs to the fortification. Transportation syndicate members typically have this thing they follow around and guard, and then it's your job to stop that caravan. I guess they're smuggling stuff. It's your goal to stop that before it reaches its destination. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to see up here, and then we'll unlock another syndicate member. Let's see as we continue. And we can see we got the quest here now to June wants to help her find and intercept the Immortal Syndicate transport. We're gonna go about that, and we'll talk much more about the Syndicate as we continue into it, but we're keeping it a little simple right now. So here we are finding Oozeback Bloom, and he's an ancient enemy that's been in the game since forever. He's always belonged here in the Mudflats, and what he has, you can see this green thing down here. He has a degen aura. You can right now I'm using a flask, so you can't see it, but when that flask is up, you can see we start to degen now. It's basically what he does, and I believe it is chaos damage. And that's actually pretty nice here, because generally speaking, you don't really care about these even unique monsters in the zone, because they typically aren't worth your time. They're not that good. But then they don't drop anything particularly good, I should say. But this time I actually think we got a little lucky, because we got a coral ring, and coral rings are very good in the beginning of your journey in Path of Exile, and that's because the coral ring in itself, the base type coral ring, as opposed to an iron ring for instance here, the coral ring always have the implicit life roll, and it can go from 20 and up to 30. These can be changed, these rolls, with blessed orbs, but we're not going to do that obviously right now. So we're going to identify this here too. It might get us something nice too. What we would be hoping for would be resistances or even more life or something like that. Fire damage to attacks, I mean, that's pretty useless for us because we're not attack based, we're casting spells. It's not going to apply to that, but we can still benefit from the life it gives us, and that's going to make our life skill points in the skill tree more efficient too. Gives them more to scale with, right? The Iron Ring here, because it's the physical damage it grants to our attacks too, it's pretty useless for us too. I don't even bother equipping it actually. Then there is a Scepter. We are using the wands right now, and since you can't dual wield a Scepter and a wand, I would be reluctant to change it out, also considering because we have all three support gems that I want now. I have the exact skill gem set up, and keep an eye out for how that works now, because we have linked it with Arcane Search. So anytime we spend more than a total of 16 mana, then we get the more spell damage and the increased attack speed buff, and we gain the 0.5 maximum mana regenerated per second, and that's buff that lasts for 4 seconds. We can actually force trigger it here, so if I just spend some mana here, we can see Arcane Search. I can just keep doing that because the mana cost of my Freezing Pulse is 6, so it's pretty easy to reach the 16, right? So it will give us the increased spell damage, cast speed, and mana regen when we do that. You can see the damage decreasing there as the buff goes off. We have the Onslaught, so when we kill something, there's a chance for Onslaught to proc for 8 seconds, giving us 20% increased attack, cast, and movement speed. And yeah, it's pretty good. And also, as we talked about earlier, when you see this on the map here, the green thing here, that means that they're Syndicate members. So the Syndicate members she was talking about, they're actually right over here. And let's see if it is that transportation thing, and yes it is.
Exile.
You see this thing here, they try to get that to a certain point on the map.
I hope you can take
And we want to prevent that. So we're gonna take them out here. And I believe there's only one Syndicate member right now. They can come and attack you in groups, depending on like their allies and how you've set up the table, etc. But we're gonna get this guy down now. You can see June, she helps us too. Excellent. So we got this stopped before it reached its destination. You could see the indicator down here on how far it was to reaching completion. I didn't notice it myself this time, so I don't know how far we got. But basically you want to stop it before that. So now again, as we did in the last video, we have another choice to make now. We're going to talk to June here.
Great work, Exile. What do you want to do with our captive?
Because like before, we can interrogate him and put him down here and gain some intelligence, or gather some intelligence per turn. And I'm not 100% on this, but I'm fairly confident that turns are basically you spend a turn every time you encounter a new syndicate group. That counts as a turn, as far as I believe. So you would have to encounter 3 other groups for him to then leave the jail that we can put him in, but he will then lose his rank. We're not really that interested in him losing his rank, because the higher rank they have, the more benefit, the more stuff we can get from them. And we want, as higher rank, a person to get into one of the safe houses too. So we're not going to interrogate him unless the bargaining option we have is terrible. But we can see here, Haku moves to transportation, Corel and Haku become trusted. So Haku is one of these guys here that we still haven't discovered. We don't know where he is, but if we do decide to bargain with him, the benefit we'll get from that is that we will figure out where Haku is first of all. We will also be able to control where Haku will be on the syndicate board, which is over here by transportation. And then it also, the thing that happens is that they become trusted. And what this means is that they are more likely to help each other in certain encounters. I am not entirely sure, but I think they also buff each other somehow. but you are much more likely to, if you are going against the other, for that person that is trusted with whatever syndicate member, for them to help them. So you are actually making it a little harder for yourself, but it also means that you will be fighting more of them and potentially getting more loot out of it. It becomes a little more efficient, I guess. So I think we're just going to do that, because I also want to know where Haku is on this board here. We're going to bargain.
The path becomes clearer
okay.
with each bloody step.
So we don't get the icon unlocked, I guess. But it's either him or him that's Haku. And they are now all connected to fortification. What we can see also on Corel here is that he is smuggling essences. So if we were to get Corel into one of the safe houses, when the safe house eventually get unlocked, right, and we can raid it, then we would most likely get some kind of essence drop bonus to that. Whereas something like Tiny here, it says betting on item outcomes. I think it's the whole Tiny's trial, where you get a almost amount of unlimited currency that you can spend for 8 seconds, and this is a very popular choice for people to try and get that in. But yeah, this is what we know for now, and we're gonna continue from now. But it's nice to know we have Haku up here somewhere.
Wise choice.
Ooh, we actually got another Quicksilver Flask. Quicksilver Flasks, it's not that they are rare, but it's still lucky to get 2 of them this early on. They don't stack, but due to limited charges, you will be running out of them every now and then. So having 2 of them can be very nice. We also pick up the Goldsworn. It's a wand. We could potentially sell that, or maybe it would have some good rolls that would use to scale the damage for us. There's a yellow stone axe, and we don't really need that. We're not gonna use a stone axe because we're not attack based, right? But since we can sell it to the vendor here early on, just for some transmutation shards or something like that, I'll pick it up for now. Also, just to show you the example of when we sell it to them. Then there is some magic hats and such. We don't. You could, if you wanted, pick it up, go back to town and sell them for, you know, the very small rewards you would get for it. But it's not really worth your time, in my opinion. So we're just going to leave that as it is there. But we did get a medium life flask earlier. I think that was actually in the end of the previous video. And basically the life flasks here, they come in various tiers, and it goes, I can't even remember all of it, but it's small, medium, large, colossal. No, I think it's giant first and then colossal, and there's one in between that too, and then there is hollowed and divine life flask. So there's a certain amount of tiers. The higher, the more they heal per use. But let's take a look at what the medium life flask here does. It has 25% increased charge recovery. And the important thing that I want to tell you guys here is that, as you maybe already figured out, there are white flasks here, considered normal items, and then there's blue, and there's no yellow, but there are unique flasks too. But what it means is that, for instance, a blue flask here, since it's a magic flask, then any type of currency that can reroll magic items, you can use that on a flask too to get different rolls on it. Or you could take a normal flask and use a transmutation orb on it to turn it magic, to see if you got something good, and then use an alteration orb on it to re-roll them if you didn't get anything good. We'll get much more into that later. That's actually not too complicated. That's the beginning of the crafting, but it's a little too early to spend our currency on something like that. It's not worth it yet. But the medium life flask here recovers 150 over 6.5 seconds, as opposed to the small life flask, which recovers 70 over 6. So obviously a nice upgrade for us here. We're gonna equip that, or we could actually just, I would get rid of the mana flask because I only need 1 mana flask. Scratch that. We got the Quicksilver Flask, of course, and it's a magic flask too. So let's see what kind of rolls it has. Increased armor during flask effect. It's a bad roll, but I mean, it's always better than nothing. But considering that we don't have that much armor, and it's a percentage increase, then it's not really gonna do much, right? If you had an armor-based character, you would get much more value for it. But yeah, but still much better than not using it. So we will throw out one of these small life flasks here. We have 2 Quicksilver Flasks now, and then we need to make sure we use them properly to get the most out of it. We also leveled up, and we'll spend another point on elemental damage here, and soon we'll be getting into Retribution, which gives us increased damage, and there's some mini damage too, we don't care about that, but we also get the attack and cast speed, strength and intelligence. But elemental damage for now, and then once you get into the Mudflats, then depending on how close you are to it, you will notice these exclamation marks on the map. Basically, exclamation marks on the map always indicates that there is some kind of quest item that you need to get, or a quest NPC that you need to talk to. In this case, it's a Roa nest. When we click the Roa nest, the ammonia glyph drops, and it gives us the next quest. Breaking some eggs. Look around the Mudflats for more clues as to the purpose of the strange glyph. And we need to find 3 different of these. We can see another exclamation mark up here, and it used to be so that back in the day, if you followed the streams, it would take you to the other nests. But since they remade the game, I'm not even sure if that's still the case. We're following the path here, like the waterway, whatever it's called, and it took us up here, right? So in this case it holds true, but I'm not sure if it's still a certainty that if you follow the streams, that it will lead you to the other Roa nests. It's not a big deal because we already know that it's over there, but in general, sometimes you're not as lucky that you can see them all, and if you're really racing and you want to do stuff fast, then it can be very nice to know these small tricks. So we can see there is another stream up here. Let's see if this holds true too. If we follow the stream here, will it take us down to the other? And yes, it takes us down to the other Roa nest. So maybe it still holds true. So we got all 3 now. And that gives us 2 options. We can either go into this zone over here. Show you. The Fetid Pool. And that's where we have the quest from Tarkley, a dirty job. And he wants us to clear all the monsters in there. Now, fortunately, I know that the quest reward you get from doing the Fetid Pool quest is going to be 2 respect points. And I don't need those. And there's no other reason to do them. So I'm going to skip this. It's not worth my time. Had I known, if I were playing a build and I would know that, and I knew that I would be needing a lot of respect points later, then maybe it would be more appealing, or maybe you can just come back here later and do it. But for now, I don't consider it worth it. So we will continue. And it might be worth knowing that there are lots of these optional quests in the game that will give you optional rewards, and a big part of them are respect points. And I believe, unless it's changed since the last, you can get up to 18 respect points just by those quests alone. And then you can also spend the Orbs of Regret to get more respect points in case you fuck up and you want to spend your points on something else. But we've reached the other point of this area. And basically we need to take these 3 items that we had, the glyphs, and then we need to insert them into the wall here. And I don't know what's happening here, but somehow the mana or the water disappears, and we can now enter the Submerged Passage, which is where we need to go. It's the next part of our progression. As you get down into the Submerged Passage, you will always encounter the waypoint, and as you can see, we're now up here. And we could go back to Lion Eye's Watch, and I think we will, because we kind of want to get rid of some of all the stuff we have in our inventory. Another thing that happened is that the Arcane Search gem leveled up. And it's actually worth knowing here that Arcane Search, you don't always want to necessarily level it up for a few reasons, or for one reason. primarily. And that is that as you level up Arcane Surge, then the amount of mana that you need to spend with your main skill for it to trigger, that increases too. So you can get to a point where if you can't spend enough mana fast enough, you can't reliably trigger Arcane Surge. And in those cases, it's better to not level up Arcane Surge. Since we are a spellcaster here, and I don't really fear that's going to be the case at this level of Arcane Surge, we're going to level it up. But as we level it up, we can see that it went from 16 requirement to now having a 17 requirement. And of course, depending on the levels, this will scale differently and the cost will get more and more expensive, right? We'll talk to Tarkley now, and he gives us another quest. To kill the Dweller of the Deep in the Underground Passage. And he's also giving us the choice of either of these skill gems here as a quest reward for doing the Mudflats quest. And here we can choose Frost Bomb, Summon Holy Relic, Flame Totem, Ancestral Protector, and Vigilant Strike. Of these here, I am mostly interested in getting... Actually, I'm not too interested in any of these, because it's not really something we're going to be needing either way later. But Frost Bomb can be used right now since we are leveling with Freeze Pulse, because when you use Frost Bomb on an enemy, they gain 25 minus cold resistance, so they take more cold damage. I'm gonna pick it up, but it's not really something that we'll be using much. We'll be putting it on our skill bar though. And I'll just place it here, and then we'll do this. Let's get rid of some of the stuff here. So we're gonna sell the axe here. I don't bother identifying. I don't want to use my wisdom scroll on it since I won't be using it and it's a low level item. It can't be worth anything. And you can see when we sell an unidentified rare item, it will give us 5 transmutation shards in return, as opposed to if it's a blue unidentified, it will give you 2. So rares do give a little more. And as I showed you in the previous video, if you do it when these are identified, then instead of transmutation shards, it will give you alteration shards. I don't want to use the scepters, I'm happy with the wands right now. We could check and see if... No, it's not linked, so we don't bother with it. But had this been linked, it might have been fine to identify it, because a nice roll you can get early on too is... or it would be, for our case, be +1 to cold gems, basically giving any cold gem that's linked in that weapon +1 to the level. And again, also as I talked about in the previous video, spells really do gain a lot just by levels, because the flat amount of damage they provide, it scales very effectively just by the levels. So it can be very good, and I think we're going to try and craft a plus cold gem or a plus lightning gem a little later, once we've gotten a little further in. I'll show you how to do that. But we don't bother with this one because it isn't linked. We'll sell these things here. None of this is worth holding on to. Let's get rid of that. And we now had a transmutation orb now. Another thing that's also good to know about these is that similar to the blacksmith's whetstone, you can also sell an orb of transmutation for 4 scrolls of wisdom. And it's actually a method that a lot of people use to sustain their wisdom scrolls at higher levels too. But it's not really something we need to do right now, and I actually kind of want to spend it on maybe one of my flasks here. So to give you an example of how that works, we would then take our Quicksilver Flask and we'd use an Orb of Transmutation, because if we read the Orb of Transmutation, it says upgrade a normal item to a magic item. And what this simply does is that, to give an explanation here, we can do this, and we can do this for now. In Path of Exile, there are 4 tiers of rarity. You have the normal rarity of an item. It is indicated by the white text and lack of magical properties. The spell damage you see there is an implicit roll. It's not considered an explicit suffix or prefix. Then you have the magic items, and they are indicated by being blue or having blue text and having either one prefix or one suffix, or both. But magic items are limited to having a maximum of one prefix and one suffix to them. Then you have the rare items, which are yellow items. The difference between a yellow and a rare item is that, first of all, rare items are a little more rare than the blues, but they aren't limited to only having 2 affixes being rolled on them. A rare item can have up to 6 affixes on them, so 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. And as always, there are exceptions to this rule with some of the items you can find later, but in general, just know that magic items, 2 affixes, rare items, 6 affixes, and normal items, no affixes, except for the implicit that they can have. But we're going to take this Quicksilver Flask now, and then we're going to spend an Orb of Transmutation to upgrade a normal item, white text, right, to a blue item, which will give it blue text. And now, I know that this is probably not the best one to do it on, because you kind of want to get the Adrenaline roll, and Adrenaline requires a higher item level than 4. Adrenaline will give it even more movement speed. But for the sake of info here, then I'm still going to do it so you guys can see how it goes. So we're going to turn this normal flask into a rare, or magic flask, sorry. And we're actually getting a pretty decent roll here. We got immunity to freeze and chill during flask effects. Removes freeze and chill on use. So basically, if you get frozen, you can click this and you thaw. And this is particularly useful when you open certain strong boxes that will freeze you as you do so. So not too bad. It could have been much worse. We could have gotten armor again or something like that. So we'll equip our stuff here again, and then we will head out towards the deep, towards the Submerged Passage, I guess. Now, in the Submerged Passage, there are 2 things you can do. You can either take the direct road towards the ledge, which is like the natural progression, or you can go into the optional zone and kill the Dweller of the Deep, the quest that Tarkley gave us just before as we spoke to him. And I would recommend that, unless you're racing or something like that, then you go and deal with the Dweller of the Deep, because when you deal with the Dweller of the Deep, you will get an optional or an extra skill point, and those are always good. So we found the entrance here, the Flooded Depths, and you will always, in this zone here, if you get in and the entrance is like this, you're going down like this, then the entrance to the Flooded Depths are typically always down here or up here. And then by running further ahead in this direction, you will find the exit to the ledge. But we're gonna go into the Flooded Depths now, because I want that extra skill point, and I want to deal with that crab guy. Alright, we don't want to pick up the shoes, but in general, these white shoes we saw up there, the normal boots, if we didn't already have movement speed on our boots, then sometimes it can be worth it to pick up a pair of white boots, to simply use an Orb of Transmutation on them to see if it rolls for some movement speed. Oh, and I'm running in circles here, that's not good. But yeah, we don't need that now. We have the 10% movement speed and we're happy with that for now. These guys deal lightning damage, so that would mean that if you have a high lightning resist, for instance, they are much less challenging. And what we found here was an Armorer Scrap. And an Armorer Scrap is similar to the Blacksmith's Whetstone that we found in the previous video, if you remember. But instead of giving increased quality to your weapons, it gives increased quality to your armor pieces. And that can be anything, and we're not just talking about breastplate, but we're also talking about boots, gloves, shields, etc. So if we, for instance, had, I can show you real quick. These here, for instance, this is an armor base. If we were to use the Armorer Scrap on this, then the base armor that says 6 now, now it's maybe too low for it to scale effectively now, but let's say it had a higher number, then that base number would be getting a percentage increase from the Armorer Scrap, and you can get up to 20% quality on the items here by using armor scraps, and up to 20 quality on weapons with the blacksmith's whetstone. And one thing that's worth knowing is that if you were to use the armor scrap on a blue item, to get 20 quality, you would have to use 10 of these. Because on a blue item, a magic item, it will give you 2 quality per spent armor scrap. However, if you were to use an armor scrap on a white item, then you would only have to use 4 of them to get 20 quality, and that's because on normal items you get 5 quality per spent armor scrap, and the same would be if you had a blacksmith's whetstone. If you were to spend it on a normal weapon, then you would also get 5 quality per piece, so it gets more expensive if you're using it on magic or rares or uniques. For rares or uniques you will have to spend 20 to get 20 quality. But the thing is, armor scraps and blacksmith's whetstones, they really don't have a lot of value, so just go ahead and use them. But at the same time, in the beginning here, they don't scale very efficiently either. So the best way to use them, in my opinion, is to sell the whetstones early on for wisdom scrolls if you need them, or otherwise just hold on to them until later. Alright, let's put our boots back on so we can benefit from that movement speed and head further into the cave here. Now we are at a monster level 6 zone, and we went into another dead end here, and my character is level 6. So again, we're doing pretty good. Like, racers would normally put more of an effort into getting to the zones, progression zones ahead of them faster. They don't care as much about being underleveled in the zones, as long as they're not too underleveled so they don't benefit from the experience as much, or to the point where they at least don't have issues with diminished returns on experience. And that's because in higher level zones, well, basically the monsters give more experience, so if you can handle the monsters at higher level zones without being too low level, then you will get the most amount of experience as long as you're killing them fast enough. Yeah. We got a diamond shrine here. Shrines are something that was added in one of the expansions a long time ago, and basically the shrines will give you a 1-minute buff, and some of these can be pretty powerful. This one here, for instance, is pretty cool. It's a well, it's Diamond Shrine, and Diamond Shrine give you 100% critical strike chain. So anything we do after this here will crit. So it's obviously a big damage boost, and it also means that there will be a lot of shatters, because cold skills, when you crit with a cold skill, it will always freeze or chill the enemy. And if you use it with a lightning skill, if a lightning skill crits, it will apply a shock. A shock will make the enemy take more damage on the next hits. The freeze and chill, well, freeze will make you stand still, and you can't really move around, so it makes the combat more safe if you're freezing your enemies, right? But if you're getting frozen, that of course makes it very dangerous for you. Then there's the fire-based skills. When they crit, they ignite, so basically they start to burn the enemies. Of the 3 elemental ailments, the most useful right now and the most meta in our current game is lightning and freezing or frozen, because fire right now is not in that great of a place. Fire skills can be good, but the ailment they apply, the ignite and the burn damage, it's a little questionable right now, but I'm sure it will come back. It used to be very, very powerful. Either way, we're going to pick up the Diamond Shrine now, and then we're going to use that to kill the Dweller of the Deep, which should be somewhere up here. And as you've noticed, I've started to just not pick up a lot of stuff. It's not worth our time anymore with like the normal items. You can see we shatter a lot now. Boom. And shattered corpses, we can't use them. So if you were playing like a necromancer, that kind of sucks, because you want the corpses to reanimate, right? But this is the Dweller of the Deep. It has 2 phases. We're going to cast our Frost Bomb here to reduce its cold resistance. And then we're just going to, because we have the Diamond Shrine, we could basically keep it in place there because it keeps being frozen, and then we kill it. Easy, easy, easy. The second phase is typically the most dangerous if you don't do it like that, but it's not too much to worry about. Either way, we have movement speed boots, but let's pick them up and sell them. Now we've completed the quest and we need to talk to Tarkley. That means that we can... Ooh, an Orb of Alteration. Perfect. It's not something rare or anything like that, but it's like... it's the currency item that if you roll something rare... I'm gonna do it here so you can see it. This here is a magic item. I think I said rare before. But this is a magic item. Magic items can be re-rolled with Orbs of Alteration. So if I do that now, we'll get another affix. And this gives us 21 additional elemental resistances during Flask effect. And for leveling, that's actually a decent one to get, because you're always a little low on your elemental resist as you do that early on. So we'll take that. It's better than the armor scaling we had before. But we completed the quest, and we need to turn in the quest over at Tarkley's to get our rewards. So what you can do is you can take a portal out, but if you want to save the portal, then similar to how it works with Hailrake, we are simply going to exit to character screen, and then we're going to log in again because it will take us back to the Lion Eyes Watch. And here we'll talk to Tarkley. And we will get the Book of Skill.
Stay sharp out there.
When we click that, boom, an additional skill point. And we actually leveled up twice down there as I was talking. So we have 3 skill points to spend right now. Very, very nice. We'll continue via the elemental path here. And then we get access to the notable Retribution. 14% increased damage. There's the minion stuff too. We don't really care about that. But we also do benefit from the attack and cast speed. The attack speed is not something we will see any benefit from now because we're not using any attacks, but we will get movement skills later, which are considered attack skills. And to get faster movement skills, then attack speed is very useful for that. So we actually do benefit from the attack speed, even though not at this point here, even though we are a caster. But it also gives us the cast speed, of course. That's nice. It also gives strength and intelligence. Then, after we've allocated this, we have 1 point left. And there's a lot of good choices here that we can go into. But one thing I want to try and unlock as fast as possible is the Ancestral Bond Keystone up here. It allows us to summon an additional totem. So once we have our arc linked with Spell Totem, we... normally we can only cast 1 of these totems and have them up, but with Ancestral Bond we can cast 2 of them, and it makes a very big difference. But we can't deal damage ourselves, so we have to rely on the totems after that for that, and that's perfect because that's the type of build we're going for. And the path I'll be doing is most likely to be as efficient with the damage scaling early on and to get proper life to prevent it from feeling bad. I think we're going to go into the life node here, into discipline and training, and we're going to go for the elemental damage node up here. Then we'll grab Light of Divinity on the path here. It's going to be nice cast speed, spell damage, crit chance for spells, and strength and intelligence. After we've done that, we're going to grab Holy Dominion too for some elemental resist, 12 to all elemental resist, and 12% increased elemental damage. And then there's the chance to free Shock and Ignite. The global fist damage, that doesn't apply to us. We don't deal physical damage. From there, we are most likely... No, we're going to grab this one here, the elemental node here, go into strength, then into devotion, one of the absolute best life nodes in the skill tree, life, and then we're going to go this way up here, and then probably this way here and into Ancestral Bond. And by that time, we should also be able to start using our Arc totems. We've probably started to use Arc already at that time. There's also the Amplify Notes here. They give increased area of effect, and this is a good lesson, I guess. If you look at... let's just apply the 2 points for now. We have 1 more point to spend. But if we look at Freezing Pulse, we just go out here. When we do this here, most people would be like, maybe some area of effect would actually be nice here to make it a little wider or to make it reach longer. So when we take a look on Freezing Pulse here, we can see that it has the spell tag below the actual title. It says Spell, Projectile and Cold. This means that area of effect nodes do not affect this. If area of effect nodes would have any influence on the area of effect of Freezing Pulse, then alongside the spell projectile and cold tags, it would also have set AoE. So that's a way of knowing that area of effect is not going to influence this particular skill gem, and neither will the area of effect damage nodes do that. Instead, Freezing Pulse, for instance, has the projectile tag, and by scaling projectile speed like you would grab from a node such as Sniper over here, that will increase the range at which Freezing Pulse can shoot. So that's a way you would do it with a spell like that, or you would use a support gem that would make it spread out and such. But similar to how the area of effect nodes won't do anything for Freezing Pulse, neither will the increased area of effect support gems. So it's always a good idea to check the tags on your spells before you commit to some type of specific damage. So the last point we'll be spending will just be grabbing the life node here. The next time, Discipline and Training. And now we will simply run towards the ledge. We'll go back to the Submerged Passage. And typically, once you see this passage here, as soon as you see the bridge in the Submerged Passage, this means you're on the right path towards the ledge. If you keep running up here and in this direction, then you will find the exit towards the ledge. And it should be somewhere down here. Oh, and we actually have another Syndicate Encounter here, and it looks like it's another transportation syndicate, because, well, it's that type of mission, right? And here who are we up against? We're up against Corel again. That was the guy from before too. He couldn't get enough, so we'll try and get him down again. And there we go. There we go.
By the bargainer.
Let's see what we can choose this time here then.
The structure of this organization.
I'll listen to what he has to say.
As a flame. I see the patterns. I'm uniquely positioned to cause a shift in syndicate roles. Let me live,
okay,
and I'll put the right words.
One sec, there's a monster hitting on us. And this is actually pretty fortunate for us, because the choice we have here...
The structure
again,
of this
stop talking, dude.
Is as fickle as a flame.
By the way, we can imprison him like we could before. This will give us the transportation intelligence to unlock towards the safe houses. But we can also take Corel here if we bargain, and then we can move him to fortification, and we can take Goff here instead and move him to transportation. So they basically switch position. Now the fortunate thing about that is that this will first of all give me an excuse to show you how the rewards change based on their position in relation to the safe houses. But in short, Goff is pretty good to have up by transportation because of the reward he then gives there, as opposed to when he's by fortification. So we're going to bargain now and move them around. You can see right now, Corel, at his position by transportation, he will give smuggling essences if we were to kill him in the safe house, right? And Goff gives the betting on item outcomes. When we move them here, then Corel now, he will give assembling fragments. You can see that by the line there. I think assembling fragments, I guess it refers to like its series fragments. Maybe could be scarabs too, it could be uber fragments or something like that. I'm not sure what it entails, but it's that type of stuff that it would be rewarded with then. And we can see Goff now, instead of having the betting thing now, he gives the wagering on item worth. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know what that specifically means right now, but I guess we'll find out if we get to test it out with it. But I have been told by some of the people who have done this a lot that Goff is one of the best ones you can have up by transportation, especially in the safe house. But we'll get to see. The whole betrayal mechanic is something I'm partly learning with you guys too, but there's a lot more to talk about in regards to these, and I'm kind of looking forward to being able to unlock more to show you guys about it too. So, large life flask, that's the next tier of flasks. We're going to identify that right away. Maximum charges, that's nice, we can use it more times too. It has armor roll too. We're going to throw out the small life flask. There's a yellow helmet and some yellow gloves too. And Here is another red, green and blue item, which means, if you remembered from the past video, that we can sell that for a chromatic item. And that's also why the loot filter gives it that color there. It's basically to indicate that it's a chromatic item. Let's check out the helmet, because what we have is absolutely terrible. That's not a bad helmet. It's not, again, in relation to, of course, our level, right? But it gives life. Has a bit of armor. Bit of rarity. We'll take it. It's definitely an upgrade, right? Let's check out the gloves too. Cold damage to attacks. There's 7 attack speed and 6 fire resist. These here would be amazing for any attack-based type of character, because 7% increased attack speed, that's quite a lot to get in the beginning on just one item here. We don't really benefit from the attack speed at this point, but we could use the fire resist. This one has the cold resist and it has some life. We're gonna keep it, or keep these here, and then we're gonna get rid of these, but these are actually pretty decent. And then you can craft on them, of course, later too. I'm looking forward to showing you guys that. We don't care about these here, we'll just sell them as they are. But for now, we will run onwards. Oh, and as you may have noticed over by the right side, we have quite a lot of skill gems that have been leveling up. We got a Frost Bomb becoming stronger, Freezing Pulse gaining more damage, Frost Bolt, that's the one I'm leveling in my offhand, so to show you guys an example of how you can level a gem without having to having it equipped in your main setup or use it. You can always just have it in your offhand setup, and that's what we're doing here. It's level 4 now, similar to the other gems, even though we're not using it. Then our Arcane Search leveled up, so let's see what's the mana cost after we level it up now. It is 19 mana now. Still not too much of an issue, but as you can see, we need to cast 3 Freezing Pulses now to proc it. So it's becoming a little harder, but fair enough. Then we have Onslaught, and it goes up to 27%. Alright, good. Let's head into the ledge. And the ledge zone is basically, it's a super linear zone. You run from one end to the other, and there's a waypoint mid throughout. We got an Orb of Transmutation there, the one that can turn a normal item into a magic item. And here again is another example. It's much easier to see here. These are magic monsters. Again, blue text up there, and they have the affix of fast attacks, so they hit faster than normal non-magic enemies, and they gain or give us more experience. So in general, always worth it to kill blues. When you get very comfortable with Path of Exile, another blue pack, then when you level up, you will be skipping most of the normal monsters, unless it's a really huge pack and you can easily get rid of it in no time. And then you will focus on getting to the zones, the next zones, as quick as possible without getting too underleveled. And then when you encounter blue monsters, you want to kill them to kind of make up for the normal monsters you don't kill, to get the fastest leveling. And that's why if you see an experienced Path of Exile player playing, you'll see him skipping a lot, and he'll be much faster in progressing to other zones, as opposed to someone who's new, who's running around killing everything. And the way I'm doing it right now, I'm taking it very slow. I'm killing most of it so I can get time to talk about these things with you guys too. But if I were to level by myself, I would also be skipping much more to be more efficient with the time. So just know that you don't have to kill all these things. Now I'm stopping up here because I wanted to tell you about this little secret here. And that is that if you go to the ledge, if you for some reason have to go to the ledge and find Kuduku because of a prophecy or something like that, then these stones here, they always point towards the direction he's in. So if you were to run in the other way, you would go back to the Submerged Passage. These here leads to the next area. So just keep going in that way. It's not as... another Quicksilver. But yeah, it's not as useful as it was back in the day when you would farm this zone for experience. Basically, this zone would be... the first zone you would really farm a lot as you got into merciless difficulty, but because the difficulties are not here anymore, and because we have 10 acts now instead of 3 or 4, then the farming zones are spread out much further. We also found a power ring here. And they're nothing fantastic, but it's definitely a base type we can use. Because they give mana, and we automatically equipped it 25 plus mana. That's always useful. Oh, and here is the next Syndicate Encounter, and it is another fortification encounter. We see that it's a fortification first of all, but that is also the type of encounter we are doing. And we have Corel again fighting him. That's, I guess, we moved him down to fortification. That's why he's now showing up as a fortification fight instead of the transportation that we've had with him the last few times. We're gonna throw down a Frost Orb, or Orb of Frost, to reduce their resistances. And then we're gonna get this down now. And one thing you might have noticed here is that we fought 2 Syndicate members now. And that is because, as you may remember from before the last time we fought him, the bargain we made was to move Corel from up here where Goff was to down here. But in turn, he would also become trusted with Haku. So that's why now that we fought Haku, or I guess we could have fought either of them, that they were fighting us 2 at a time because they are allied and they're helping each other out. And that's of benefit to us if we can kill them, because it means more loot and more research or intelligence uncovered. But it can also be a downside if our character is weak and we can't handle enough or all these Syndicate members at the same time. So it's a choice you have to make. So the important thing to know when there are 2 Syndicate members is that you can talk to both of them, and depending on what you do, their rewards will change. So if we let's see what Haku offers. So here we have the interrogate option again. We can send him down for some turns for some information gathered on the safe house up here to get that further unlocked, or we can click Betray, and then we can have Corel removed from the Immortal Syndicate. And Corel, that's the guy down here we fought. And I am a little unsure about how to use this properly, but I'm pretty sure that the point of this is to, first of all, if there's a specific of the Syndicate members that absolutely destroys you, then you can remove him so you won't be encountering him until, I guess, you get him back somehow by choice. Or, alternatively, there are some Syndicate members where you just don't want the reward from, so by eliminating them, by not having them in the pool, there's a higher chance that when they create allies and move things around, there's a higher chance it will be someone else than him, so you can reduce the risk of not getting the right Syndicate member for the reward you're seeking. But yeah, so I don't really like either of these choices here. I don't mind having him in there, even though it's essences, or what was it he was giving this time when we moved him? It was assembling fragments, so fair enough. But I don't really mind him. I don't feel like we need to remove him, to be honest. We don't want to do something like that yet, but I don't really want to interrogate them either and have them lose their rank. So the thing that's important to know here is that when we talk to Haku now, and those were the 2 options he gave us. If we then try and talk to Corel, he will give us 2 other options.
Poorly. For his own sake, I must betray
and we can also imprison him and put him down in the garrison for safe house, intelligence gathering, or we can give him +1 rank. Actually, it's plus rank to fortification members, so it's anyone who's a fortification member that will gain 1 rank, and then -1 rank to transportation members. That's interesting. So this over here is fortification. Up here we have transportation. What that would mean is that both Goff and Haku would lose their rank, but Corel would gain a rank because he's part of this. That's a pretty terrible choice too, so I'm not really interested in that. Had it been the other way around, I would love to have gained the ranks on these guys up here and then lost the rank on this. So I actually think because he gave me such a shitty choice, we're gonna have him removed. We're gonna talk to Haku again, and we're gonna betray and remove Corel from the Immortal Syndicate. So as you can see, he's no longer in play now. And instead there's someone else in here. We still have Haku, Goth up here by this, and then we need to unlock these to see who they are inside the other fortifications or other safe houses. We got a lot of intelligence or experience from this too, and we've leveled up twice. So we were gonna spend a point on discipline and training, and then up here, and then eventually these two for the next ones. Very nice. With 270 life now, we have 9 cold resist and 11 lightning resist. So pretty good so far. And this is all the loot that dropped here. We're gonna pick up the scale vest. A power amulet might be useful. We don't have any amulets either. And we will just leave the other stuff for now. We don't really care about that. But let's real quick check the amulet since we don't have one. Wants to do physical damage to attacks. That's pretty useless. But the implicit that power amulets do, similar to the power rings, which give flat life. This one gives mana regen. Flat mana, I mean, and mana regen. So that's okay. Then we had the yellow scale vest here. It has to be really damn good for me to be wanting to put that on to sacrifice the movement speed for it. Maximum life, lightning resist. That's actually pretty good at this level, but still, I don't care. I want the movement speed, so I'm gonna leave them out. We're just gonna sell them for some of the transportation stuff. Anytime you're in the ledge, when you get towards the end, when you're nearing the coral, coral, man, I'm too tired, man. I keep saying the wrong things here. But when you're near the end of the ledge and go into the climb, you will encounter Kuduku, which was the boss that was up there. It's basically this totem that shoots some lightning and stuff, but we're just gonna leave him from now. But because, again, similar to the other zone bosses, unique zone bosses, they don't really have too much to provide. There's some prophecies where you need to go and kill them. You'll get some fusings and such, but that is not something we are dealing with yet. But when I said coral before, it's because we found a coral ring. And as you may remember, coral ring is a good base because it has the implicit life. So let's take a look at this. 23 life. It's item level 6. And I think I'm going to spend an orb of transmutation on it to see if we can get another good roll. So we're going to spend this one to upgrade a normal item to a magic item. 9 cold resist. It's pretty good. I'll take that. I'll take that. Like, the power ring is not terrible either. The maximum mana is okay, but we don't really need it. So we'll just trade it for the life. We're getting close to 300 life here. And we also got a large mana flask. So we'll upgrade our medium mana flask and throw this away. We had this Quicksilver Flask we found before, so we'll spend a transmute on that later to see if we get a good roll instead of the other one. So in the climb, there's a waypoint, and typically it's in the beginning of the zone, up on one of the climbs here. And let's see if we can find it. Yes, it's typically around or close to the book here, or weathered carving or whatever it is. If you interact with those, you will get some lore, but we don't want to do that right now. Waypoints, alright, let's go back to town. And guys, it is getting very late here, and I think we actually made some good progression here. So we're going to end the Path of Exile Survival Guide episode 3 for now. And I hope it's been informative or entertaining. Thank you for watching, everyone. Look me up on Twitch, twitch.tv/lifting_, or yeah, you know, I need to sleep now. Have a good one, guys. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?